right, babies, it's that time again. Oh, yeah. We are in Genesis 32. Oh, baby. You know how I love Genesis. Actually, today we can do something with it. A lot of the time we cannot. Righty. It is the story of Jacob wrestling with some kind of supernatural being called a man. Of course, Christians like to claim that this unnamed man that he's wrestling with at night before he sees his brother Esau, who he deceived, if you remember correctly, into disguising himself as his brother by putting a hairy or furry animal cloth on his body so his blinded father, Isaac, would bless Jacob instead of Esau. So now Jacob is seeking Esau and sending him gifts so that Esau doesn't attack him out of payback for his deceptive theft of his brother's birthright. Yeah. You know, one of those stories. Yeah, so while he's, in trepidation about, what Esau might do to him, he wrestles with God overnight and prevails, except that he gets kind of an injury in his hip. As a result, and which turns into a tradition of Israel to not eat that part of the animal that's near the hip that was injured. In honor of Jacob wrestling with God and getting his name changed to Israel. Yeah, you got all that? So, believe it or not, I'm going to make something out of that. And what might that be? Well, it's going to be, there's good wrestling and there's not good wrestling. And no, I'm not talking about Hulk Hogan. We're driving straight into the sun, which is always a lovely thing. So let's start with the not so good wrestling. That's the easy one. You may have found yourself in your life, like me, experiencing the vicissitudes of your emotionality and your desires. That get expressed as you fighting with God in order to get your way. Like somehow I'm either gonna change God's mind, because if he loves me, he'll see my way is right, or you're just gonna plow yourself through and do whatever it is you want and hope that he forgives you because he's all merciful, because you can't resist your desires, or you can't resist your serving yourself. So in that sense, you could look at all that as wrestling, and that's never really a good thing. So there's that. So you could look at that in this case with Jacob, right? Because he deceived his brother, and I think his name Jacob means deceiver. So he's constantly like dealing with the consequences of his choices, right? That's humanity. In fact, if there's anything good to come out of Genesis, I think it's frequently that you have these stories of these kind of foolish attachments humanity has to its own plans and its own service of itself. That's why I was talking about last week, better not to have plans, better to just be in the moment and serve God. That's what I was talking about. Obviously, I'm not talking about, doing the things you got to do in a given day, etc., just to live in this realm. I'm talking about those areas that you could prioritize better and put God first. That's what I was getting at. So we have Jacob suffering the consequences of his deceptive actions, living in fear, and then sort of wrestling with God in that sense of trying to discover who he really is and being afraid to see who he really is. Yes, Jacob, you are the deceiving blankety blank, and now you're dealing with the consequences of potential payback from your brother. Yeah. On the other hand, there's a good kind of wrestling, and we'll get into this some other time because we don't have a lot of time left. And that is, while you're trying to figure things out in the world, and God totally understands that, he created it. He knows you're not going to get it. He's ready to help you get it. So in that sense, wrestle with him with what it is you're trying to get. Don't be afraid of it. Don't feel like you're going to insult God and then try to get yourself together so you're not in a wrestling frame of mind, and now all of a sudden you're submissive and God's going to bless you and like you better that way. No. Do the wrestling. He wants to wrestle with you. He wants to hear what you have to say. He wants to see you be real with him so he can be real with you. Yeah, baby.